This video is going to be my first preview of the Ravens' trip to New York in Week 15 to take on the Giants. I'm going to focus this preview on one specific element of New York's offense, and that's their 11 personnel run game. I think it's the most direct path, the most obvious path that they have in order to shorten the game, generate yards, and try to stay in the football game against the Ravens. I know the Ravens are huge favorites. New York is dealing with a tremendous amount of injuries that impacts this game as well, obviously at the quarterback position. But one thing to focus on, besides how talented Malik Nabers is as a rookie wide receiver, and I'll focus on that, or at least get some film out on that Saturday morning, is their 11 personnel run game. If they're able to generate yards, shorten the game, they can stay in the football game against a lot of teams, and they have done so in the past 6 weeks. If you go all the way back to Week 8, they're on a tremendous losing streak. But just stopping our analysis at Week 8 forward, losses against the Steelers, Commanders, Panthers, Cowboys, and Saints have all been by one score. And in each of those games, they've been able to generate about 128 yards rushing per game on average. Against the Steelers, 157, Commanders, 164, Panthers, 167. In the games in their losing streak where they haven't been able to generate consistent rushing yards against the Eagles and the Buccaneers, they've lost by more than 2 scores. Seems quite simple to me. The Ravens' path, the Ravens' task, I should say, is stop or slow down the 11 personnel run game, make them throw the football. Of course, Nabers is going to have an impact, I think, no matter who he plays against. He's just that talented. Like I said, I'll have some film out of him on Saturday morning. Let's get to the film and check out basically the Giants' run game. I'm going to focus on how the Steelers tried to stop it, because the Steelers run a lot of these concepts. They almost kind of revealed their hand, how they would stop their own offense run game in the case of the Steelers. So this is 12 personnel. It's going to be a duo concept. So duo is double teams at the point of attack on both defensive tackles. And watch what the Steelers' 2 inside linebackers do pre-snap. So number one, out of 12 personnel, you're talking about 2 tight ends on the field. I think one of them happens to be an eligible offensive lineman. But to 2 inside linebackers, watch the communication that occurs between these 2 guys, Roberts and Queen. It looks like Roberts is handling most of the alignment stuff. Because you're getting these double teams on the defensive tackles, you're allocating or devoting 2 offensive linemen to each defensive tackle. Doesn't mean they won't combo off, or at least attempt to. But in this case, the Steelers are forcing their hand. They are speeding up the process by which an offensive lineman has to determine which combo to use. I drew my combos up a little bit wrong earlier. My apologies for that. The Steelers did this 3 times in the game, and they did it in situations where New York had been running the football successfully on a particular drive. That one was 5th possession, I believe, which is a long drive. I'm going to rewind time and basically show you about 6 run plays, how they're setting them up out of 11 personnel. We should be quite familiar with some of them. We don't necessarily run duo a ton. We've run what looks like duo at times, and to be honest with you, there's times where people can argue or have discussions about what it actually is. Normally, it's a double team at the point of attack on both defensive tackles, base block out on the edge defender to one side, meaning they're not leaving him unblocked, base block on the edge defender to the other side, versus inside zone or zone read, you'd be leaving an inside or an outside linebacker or edge defender unblocked, still executing some combos on the inside, but they wouldn't just be straight up double teams that turn into a late combo. There's actually a penalty on this play on the Giants that wipes out this big gain by Tracy. He had a huge day against the Steelers, don't get me wrong. It was 26-18 as far as the final score. They stayed competitive throughout. Here's what we're talking about, and you're not going to get this view during the broadcast. So as a fan trying to watch the game live, you're not necessarily going to know that it's due, and no one's going to tell you. I do kind of wish that sometimes they would give us an inkling of what the concept might be, maybe something that pops up on screen. But in any case, check out how they handle this. The Steelers are trying to blitz Queen pretty much right into the point of attack. Downhill concept out of the gun. You can see the seam that opens up. I think that's what they're going to have to try to do in order to shorten the game and stay in the game as long as possible against a Ravens offense that's clearly very talented and is going to make big plays pretty much no matter what defense we face. Moving forward to the second possession, still 11 personnel, pretty much what you're going to get out of Brian Daboll. And this is what I would call a sweep read. I have this on film against them 3 times. I'm only going to show you 2 of them in this video. So you've got the outside linebacker who is, quote, being read. Additional to that, safety has walked down over top of number 3. And so you get this kind of sweep path by the running back, which potentially could have an RPO tagged on the back side of it in the form of a slant or anything related to like a bubble out to the edge. They're basically just trying to hold that edge defender for a little bit of time to create a seam, a gap between that edge defender and the rest of the defensive structure, and you can see in this case it works brilliantly. Same play from the end zone angle. And again, the edge defender is the guy they're trying to widen up, number 1. Number 2, because they're going trips out of 11 personnel and the tight end is over here, it's kind of a trickle-down effect. So the 3 technique is almost forced to be to the tight end side. The shade, 1 technique, 2-eye, whatever you want to call him, he's the A-gap defender, is going to be to the trips. So let's call him a 2-eye. I think it's Hayward. So what you end up having is 2-gap bubble between Hayward and the edge defender in the case of Highsmith. And sure enough, that's exactly where they run the ball. Steelers are having trouble matching up with their 11 personnel run game. We have in the past as well, whether it was Zach Orr or Mike McDonald's defense. It's a little bit of a different flavor than like the Rams' dedication to 11 personnel run game. I would say conceptually similar, but it has some slight differences. Moving forward to the third possession, 11 personnel trips with the back on the side of the tight end now, and they go zone read off of it. We run this exact same play with Lamar and Derrick Henry. Running back is going to flip sides, end up on the same side as the tight end. I call that A-gun, where they're attached to each other. How the Steelers are trying to handle it, I think they know the game on this one. I think the Steelers understand what play is getting ready to happen. That's Peyton Wilson, off screen for you guys slightly on the left-hand side of the frame. He is the read man. And just too much space for him to try to close down and get all the way to the running back to have any impact at all. It allows, since they're stunting this edge defender to the inside, it allows everything to pretty much work this way and then Tracy to cut downhill off of it. I oftentimes call this a same side run, but this one's obviously a read by the quarterback. "12 personnel now, and it seemed like whenever the Steelers got this, they were trying to blitz to defeat the scheme before it could get going. And they've clearly walked as many guys into the box as possible, creating one-on-ones for the wide receivers. I believe this is Neighbors up top here. They really are doing us a favor by putting him in the box. Not saying he can't block or he's unwilling, but as far as skill set, he is far more dangerous out on the edge, out on the outside, threatening to go vertical against any of our wide receivers. As an aside, I love the canted nose that the Steelers utilize sometimes. It's rare at this point in the NFL. To me, I don't necessarily understand all of their usage of it. I'll be straightforward. But it seems like it's normally tagged with a strong safety rolled up to that side. Meaning, if the strong safety was rolled up here, they either wouldn't have a canted nose where they do right now, or he would be on the same side as where the strong safety is lined up. Hopefully I said that in a way that makes sense. Strong safety is blitzing downhill to try to impact this. This, again, I think the Steelers are kind of giving us answers to the questions that they actually try to create. Neighbors is trying to get a good block on the strong safety there. They're folding it, or Jill, if you want to call it that. Tight end is stepping out to the edge defender. Wide receiver stepping inside here, trying to seal off the strong safety 25. Very Rams-esque, if you will. I believe this is all going to be fifth possession here. So trips closed, got the running back on the same side. Actually, you saw this exact same play from the other angle a moment ago. It was a big run by Tracy where they walked up Peyton Wilson. And lo and behold, it's the same exact concept. From a formation standpoint, trips closed A does offer you this run concept, particularly into the boundary. Some pass concept options to the top side. We're going to be I don't think we're going to be keeping a safety to the backside like the Steelers are here. I think we're going to allow our inside linebacker to the boundary to handle that. Do we open ourselves up to the run game over there by being -1? I'm not sure. I think we have had difficulty with 11 personnel run game for years. And in fact, some of it was against the Steelers dating back to when Ben Roethlisberger was the quarterback. They do a really nice job here at the offensive line position, handling all of this. You got Deshaun Elliott rolled up, Queen from the backside here on a little bit of a blitz. Watch how these two guys handle the nose tackle up to Peyton Wilson, and that is where the gap or the seam ends up being there for the cut by Tracy. He had a long touchdown run in this game as well that I'll show you. Downhill run concepts to me is what I would look for them to utilize, unless the back is to the trips like you see here. So this is 11 personnel, and the back is to their right with the tight end down here into the boundary to their left. This seems to me to be an indicator for what I would call sweep read. Showed it to you earlier where they're holding the edge defender, trying to widen him up as much as possible. It's not a huge gain. Tracy almost kind of like loses balance there for a moment when he makes his cut. They're widening TJ Watt up with the wide receiver, just giving him some eye candy. The Steelers have seen this earlier, number one. Number two, they've got the same setup, except now it's Queen instead of a safety. Queen and Watt are kind of stacked over this wide receiver. Allows them to easily cut off Queen. Tracy, like I said, seemed to like lose his balance or lose his footing. Otherwise, you're looking at a possibility of a bigger gain than this one ended up to be. Still conceptually similar to trips closed, except now the wide receiver is over here. So trips closed, same side read. He was here. They were running that zone read. They were running that zone read to the tight end side, reading the edge defender. In this case, the wide receiver's on the same side as the tight end on a 2nd and 10. Conceptually, same concept, same thing, except now they're base blocking the edge defender. In this case, it's Highsmith. So I don't know what you look at pre-snap during games. We only see the Giants once a year. Well, excuse me, we see the Giants once this year. Otherwise, not very often. I think the last time we played them was 2002. I don't think we're going to be mugged up in run situations like the Steelers are here. Kind of opening themselves up. Watch where this run concept goes and watch how they block it in relation to where the two inside linebackers are. Edge defender gets handled on a base block. Here's your inside linebackers, Queen and Wilson. Really nowhere to be found once Tracy cuts this up into the C-gap. That's the type of run concept that I would look for Brian Daboll to try to rely on, whether it's pro twins, the formation that you see here, with the tight end receiver on the same side, but the running back on the same side as the tight end, or whether it's trips closed, where you've got the running back, tight end still on the same side, but all three receivers to the downside. Conceptually, I would say it's similar. Those are the things that I would look for as a fan watching the game on Sunday, or at least expect the Giants to try to run to keep the clock moving, try to generate yards, get into as many 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s as possible. If not, convert on 2 downs. The Ravens, I think, run defense is one of the best in the league. So how that plays out during the game with all the injuries they have, with their situation at quarterback, I can't predict it. Clearly looks like the Ravens should be favored by as much as they are. I think it was over 15 points the last time I heard. In any case, this is my first preview. One of the elements that I think you'll see the Giants run a lot of, particularly in the first half, and as long as the score stays close, their 11 personnel run concepts, Daboll does a great job with them. I saw those guys in the preseason against the Lions, and their 11 personnel run concepts, they're tough, they block them well. Those guys are disciplined, regardless of all the other things that have gone on in New York the last couple of years. Do I think they should have kept Saquon Barkley? I mean, obviously. Look at how well he's playing, number one. Number two, look at how successful he was in New York when he was healthy. In my opinion, they can get things done in the run game against pretty much anybody if you're not prepared for it. This is my preview, my first one for the Ravens' visit to New York in Week 15, focusing on the Giants' run game out of 11 personnel. Let me know what you think of the plays that I chose to illustrate how effective I think it can be if you're not prepared for it, if you're not in the right look defensively, number one. And number two, if you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this film study preview, of the Ravens' Week 15 matchup, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.